The first game on Saturday then is between the Rapparees and the Shelmaliers, and that takes place in Wexford Park. Paul, what are your initial thoughts on this game?
As for this, I suppose before this game, everybody would have said 50-50, I'm thinking. But Liam Ryan being injured, I can imagine most people now swing it that Shells will have enough to beat Raps. Now, in saying that, listen, the Shells, I think they drew 3 games last year, maybe 3 or 4 out of 5 groups in the group stages. They were beaten in the quarter final. Now, initially after break by St Anne's, so maybe they flattered to deceive. It's hard to know exactly how good they are. But in saying that, can many teams, as I said, except the Martins, cope with someone of just the strength and the power of Liam Ryan, the importance to the team? It's hard to know. The Raps themselves, as I said, seem to have a very kind of back to basics experienced backroom team. As I said, Adrian, Garrett, Brian, Declan, Skinner, they're all there, they're all back. So I'm sure the players themselves are going to be given as much as they can give in the relative short period of time that they're allowed training. And form, I can imagine, there is no form lines. The Raps were disappointed in the quarter final last year, themselves were disappointed in the quarter final last year. Each team would probably see themselves as a top 4 team. But in saying that, I can imagine each team is looking at this match going, as we don't really want to be facing down Gorey, having to beat them to make it to a quarter final. And it's the first match, but realistically this is the match that they're going to really go hell for leather for, in my opinion. And saying that now, kind of skirted around the answer, but as I said, the Shells, they're a bit like actually the Raps, because I think they have kind of a background team. Hoppers with him. I think Martin Byrne is training him. Fergie Parker is the manager, I think. Vinny Parker, yeah. And then you have Mick Purcell was with Clara. He's with him now as well. Now lately, I've heard maybe he's with him a long time, but he's with him anyway. So they're kind of gone back to basics with the 2 homegrown fellas. They have a lot of youth up front, right? They've Conor Hearn, Sean Keane, Carroll. You'll have Ross Banville. A lot of young fellas who were. Listen, they're not young, I suppose, they're 20, 21, 22 now, you know what I mean? Their backs in the midfield are very solid. Sure, you still have the 2 Donahues, the 2 Malones, Owen Doyle kind of still controlling it. As I said, the Raps, we know it's hard to know what the Raps will really give you. They could be really good, or I think maybe they could let you down. And I think basically that for the reason that Liam Ryan is missing, Shells will get over the line in this one.
What do you think, Ed?
Yeah, like the Raps have been dealt a cruel blow with Liam Ryan. I can't think of any other player you'd hate to lose as much as Liam, you know. I think his loss is going to be felt more against Gorey actually, because I would give him a great chance against Gorey, where he has the power and the physique to match Conor MacDonald. Now the Shells are not known for scoring goals. They didn't appear to have a goal threat. They're a fine team to play through the lines and all. And as Paul said, there's some very exciting players up front. Actually, that Hearn chap is a player I really admire. I think he's a very good player. But you know, the Raps weren't that far off last year either, even though they underperformed in the quarter final and semi-final. They still only got bet by a few points in the end up against the Anns, so they could have been in a county final. They've a lot of good players themselves. Ryan Mann and Shermossy Mann is still hurling, I believe, and the half back line is very good. James Pear and Ricky Fox and Jack Kelly. I think this one is going to be the closest game of the weekend actually, and I wouldn't see it as clear cut as some are saying. I'm giving the Raps a great chance in this match.
And in terms of last year's performances, you just touched on it there that both teams might be a little bit disappointed to have lost to St Anne's. The Shells were particularly, after breezing through the group stages, the Shells were particularly flat. But that's really evidence that these teams can blow hot and cold. Like the Raps can be absolutely brilliant on their day as well. But then when they're not on song, they can be quite average.
You must remember both days. We have to remember the performance of Diarmuid O'Keefe against both teams. He was outstanding against the Shelmaliers and he was equally good against the Raps. So when you have a player in that type of form, you know, it's awful hard to beat a team, you know. And I won't say he's a one-man team, but by God, he is some hurler. Like, and I still think the Raps will put up to the Shells, and a lot of people I'm talking to think different, but I still think they will.
So Ed reckons that Liam Ryan mightn't be as much of a loss in this game as he would in terms of handling Conor MacDonald. Would you see the same point yourself?
I would. As I said, if there was any one man in Wexford to mark Conor MacDonald, Liam Ryan would be the fella that should fit. I mean, player for player to mark him, but it's just generally, I think in this game, I just think mentally that Liam Ryan is such a leader that, as I said, I wouldn't, as much as you have other leaders in the dressing room and everything, it's very hard to replace somebody who's nearly irreplaceable on a team. And the team is structured that if they're struggling up front, he goes up front. If they're struggling at the back, he goes at the back. And so the last couple of years they would have said if you only had 2 Liam Ryans you'd win every county final. But now they don't have any Liam Ryan. And as I said, for that reason I think that the Shells will, now as I said, they'll either win it by a point or 2 or it could be a draw again, because they seem to be the draw specialists in both hurling and football. And I'd be of the opinion that maybe, listen, it comes down to it, I'll change my, and actually will go for a draw on this one. But it'll be a draw or a Shells win by a point. That's where I end up my prediction.
And I heard yesterday, just finally there, that we've talked about Liam Ryan missing for the Raps, but Benny Barron and Arnie Murphy are both apparently out for the Shells, or potentially out as well. Now they mightn't be names that immediately come to mind, but they get through a lot of work. And
definitely a loss, you know. I think Martin Byrne is a very good trainer, you know. I think he'll bring a bit to him. But you know, you saw yourself with the Shelmaliers intermediate team, Peter. There's some great talents coming, and some very good young talents coming, you know.
We've certainly experienced working with Martin Byrne, and he's a top class coach. There's no doubt about that.
No doubt, yeah.
So you reckon a draw or a very close game anyway?
Yeah.
And you reckon?
Well, I was going to go for a draw, but seeing as Paul is sitting on the fence now, I'll tip the Raps to win by 1 point.
And I'm going to make it 1 each, and I'm going to go with the Shells to win by a point or 2, but a very close game again.